71% MAGA. That's what the United States is right now. It's 71% MAGA. That's thanks to President Donald Trump. And according to a brand new NBC poll, which I'm sure was just not at all pleasant for them to write. But ever since President Donald Trump won re-election, was inaugurated, came back to office, and just started kicking everybody's booty over the last several months, it appears that most of the country not only approves of the job that he's doing, but they're excited to be part of the MAGA movement. And it is growing exponentially and super quickly. Here's the article from NBC News. Polling shows growing number of Republicans identify with the MAGA movement. More than 1/3 of registered voters identified themselves as MAGA supporters in March's NBC News poll. That's not just Republicans, that's all voters. 1/3 of voters in America have labeled themselves MAGA voters, meaning 1/3 of the people that voted in the last election want to make America great again. But that's not even the best part. That includes 71% of Republicans. 71% of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. And that's thanks in part, that's thanks really mostly to President Donald Trump. The article reads, as President Donald Trump nears the 100-day mark of his second term, recent polling from NBC News shows how he has consolidated the Republican Party, not just around himself, but around his broader Make America Great Again movement. 36% of registered voters identified themselves as MAGA supporters in the March NBC News poll. It's a significant increase from past NBC News polling, up from 23%. And that's an incredible leap if you think about it. 36% up from 23%. That's almost a 50% increase. 23% of respondents in a merged sample of all NBC News polling, and 27% of respondents, blah, 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 blah. The overall share is powered by the 71% of Republicans who now call themselves MAGA supporters. NBC News' polling already showed signs of a shift afoot between the beginning of the 2024 presidential primaries and the final weeks before Election Day. So they knew this was coming. They couldn't stop it. Everybody at NBC News, everybody in the Republican Party, pretty much everybody in the country knew that President Donald Trump and his MAGA movement was a force to be reckoned with. And that was leading into the primaries, leading into Election Day. And now that he's taken over the office of the presidency, and now that he's back in the White House and his administration is killing it, now that we see the power that this president has, not only are more people agreeing with what Donald Trump is doing, but they are now associating themselves with his movement, which is incredible. Typically, when you have a president that's that powerful and popular and with that kind of a mandate coming into an election, you start to see, a whittling away of support. But the opposite is actually true here in the United States of America. Again, thanks to President Donald Trump, his great leadership and his incredible Make America Great Again agenda. And speaking of his Make America Great Again agenda, there's a whole lot going on. Yesterday, President Donald Trump was joined by President Bukele from El Salvador, he's like the Central American President Donald Trump. He's out there. He's making sure that El Salvador is safe. He's building massive prisons. He's throwing criminals in them. He's getting rid of Tren de Aragua and other MS-13 and all these other gang members. What he's done in El Salvador is taken it from the most dangerous country in the world to the safest country in the world. It's amazing how when you actually fight crime, you can win. It's amazing how when you punish criminals, nobody wants to commit crime anymore. And your citizens can walk around free of fear of rape and murder and all these other terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things that these awful people in this country do. And President Donald Trump has been deporting, you might say, all of these criminal aliens, all of these illegals, these gang members from the United States to El Salvador so that they could be incarcerated by Bukele in his massive prison. And he came to the White House yesterday, to shoot the breeze for a little back and forth, and also to take questions about this so-called Maryland father, which is a misnomer, that was deported and sent to a prison in El Salvador. The guy actually happens to be a gang member, a violent criminal, and someone who was here illegally. But Caitlin Collins from CNN asked President Bukele if he would do what the judge has ordered and facilitate the return of this El Salvadoran criminal gang member to the United States of America. Here's what President Bukele told CNN's Caitlin Collins.
I'm supposed to not suggesting that I'll smuggle a terrorist into the United States. I mean, how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
The question is preposterous. Even El Salvadoran President Bukele understands that CNN is fake news. They have an agenda and they have no clue what they're talking about. This is a man who's not a United States citizen. He's from El Salvador. He's in El Salvador. He's a criminal. He's a gang member. He's currently incarcerated in El Salvador. And the CNN fake news and also the liberal media and also the Democrats in Congress and also the district court judges who are just totally woke and biased and legislating from the bench and trying to usurp President Donald Trump's power for foreign policy. All of those folks are like, just send him back. And President Bukele is like, I can't send him back. He's not an American citizen. What am I going to send him back to? I can't smuggle an illegal criminal into the United States of America. There's so many things wrong with that. He has no right to be here. And also, he has a pretty checkered past. And Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, in fact, this was an amazing press conference. Everybody went around and they just started to try to explain to Caitlin Collins how dumb her words were. They tried to explain to Caitlin Collins how ridiculous what she was saying was. Marco Rubio put it really succinctly and explained again that this is not, first of all, the court's problem. This is Donald Trump's authority, and it's also ridiculous. We're not going to bring terrorists back into the country.
I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it is simple. It's simple, but yet for some people, it's very difficult. It's simple, yet for whatever reason, CNN and a lot of Americans and a lot of Democrats can't seem to grasp it. What this would account to if because again, the court's ordered, the guy's name is Kilmar Garcia or whatever. The court's ordered Donald Trump to facilitate the return of this criminal illegal alien to the United States of America. It's a weird thing. It's weird to begin with. But the second thing about it is that this then becomes, as Bukele put it, smuggling an illegal criminal into the United States of America. And it would be the equivalent of kidnapping. It would be the equivalent of kidnapping this citizen and dragging him away from his country of origin. As Marco Rubio said, that's where you deport people. You deport them back to their country of origin. Pam Bondi, who is the DOJ head, the Attorney General, she was on with Jesse Waters yesterday, and she explained it really well, too, that the media, go figure, is trying to distort this guy's image. They keep calling him a Maryland father who was accidentally incarcerated, but that's not the story at all. That's the spin. Here's the actual reality of what's going on with Kilmar Garcia.
Jesse, when you're listening to all these liberal reporters, they keep calling him a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's part of a foreign terrorist organization. He's a member of MS-13 who, as you laid out in your monologue, came to this country and committed just gang acts. He was caught, and two judges, an immigration judge and an appellate judge, ruled that he was an MS-13 member, as well as ICE's testimony. Yet his attorneys are saying he's not affiliated with the gang. They're wrong, and he has no right to be there. But for an extra step in paperwork, just like you said, he would go right back to El Salvador, which is his home country, where he belongs. And President Bukele does not want to give him back to the United States, nor do we want him back.
Right, so that's it.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, it's really a cut and dry scenario at this point. But for whatever reason, the courts still believe that they have some kind of authority over the foreign policy of the United States of America, which they do not. And the media continues to hammer home this issue. But President Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is going after illegals, criminals, gang members, drug dealers, thugs, murderers. He's going to get them out of this country. He's going to get them all. In fact, that was another ridiculous question. I don't know who asked this dumb question, but somebody asked President Donald Trump, how many more illegal thug, murderer, criminal, drug dealer, human traffickers are you going to get out of this country? How many more? Listen to President Trump's answer.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous. Not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart.
And now Donald Trump is saying we're going to get rid of all of them. I mean, what kind of a question is that? How many more would you like to get rid of? He goes, as many as possible. We don't want any illegal aliens here, especially if they're criminal gang members. We would like all of them to go away. And I've asked President Bukele to build more prisons. We'll ship them out there. And what President Donald Trump and what President Bukele are doing here, it's really interesting. They're creating kind of a brand new cottage industry of incarceration. The incarceration industry is going to be El Salvador's greatest gift to the world. What they're doing is they've mastered the art of incarcerating criminal gang members, bringing them in, shaving their heads, keeping them in cells, making sure that they're off the streets, doing everything they get, rehabilitating them to the point where they never, it's harsh rehabilitation, but they never want to commit crimes again. And if they do, they're going to go away forever. And what Donald Trump is doing is saying, look, we need more prisons. We need you to become the prison capital of the entire world. And we'll ship everybody there and we'll pay you. And everyone will win. It's going to be a win-win-win. And I think that President Bukele is seriously considering that kind of an offer, because why wouldn't you? If you are so good at something and people are willing to pay you for it, well, then you should take their money and you should do the job that they want you to do. Speaking of getting paid, speaking of doing the job, let's talk tariffs, because President Donald Trump, he's not just making the country 71% MAGA, he's making the country 71% wealthy. These tariffs, the tariffs that everybody complains about, the tariffs that everyone's saying are chaotic, are doing more good for the United States than I think any economic policy that I've seen in my lifetime, and that includes the tariffs. That includes putting reciprocal tariffs on other countries to inspire them to change their trade habits and make it more fair to the United States of America. But not only that, the other thing these tariffs do is they really light a fire under the manufacturing industry and inspire a lot of people, rather than paying the explosive tariff rate, to just build stuff here in the United States of America because it's cheaper. And we got plenty of room and plenty of factories and plenty of people and plenty of know-how. And you just bring your stuff over here. You're not going to get charged a tariff. You're going to get super wealthy, and you're going to help make America wealthy again. And that's the whole goal. That's exactly what President Donald Trump wants done. And that's what's happening. He had a major announcement, yet another. I should say he's had a lot of major announcements. Another major announcement about a manufacturing company coming to the United States in the way of NVIDIA, who for the first time is going to be building in the U.S. $500 billion worth of production coming to the United States from NVIDIA.
Well, it's one of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear, because NVIDIA, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world, between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest. And the other biggest we already have coming in is spending $300 billion, as you know. They announced 2 weeks ago. But NVIDIA is so highly respected. And this was an announcement that a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big. And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th and because of a thing called tariffs, as I say, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. After love, God, relationship, the press actually hit me and said, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. What about family, love, God? I got hit even on that. You understand? I said, okay. So now I say it's my 5th most favorite word, because they get you on anything. But that NVIDIA, it's one of the great companies of the world. Modern, super modern companies, controls segments that nobody, sort of controls the world in a sense. And they're coming in here in the biggest way with hundreds of billions of dollars, not like millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, and I'm honored by it. And I want to thank Jensen and all of the people that we deal with. They're great.
They're great people, and hundreds of billions of dollars coming into the United States of America because of President Donald Trump's tariff policy and his economic policy. And Kevin Hassard, who, if you don't believe anybody, you should believe this guy, because this guy's one of the smartest people in the administration, one of the smartest people probably in the country. And he's discussing again how all of these countries coming back, it's not just NVIDIA, but it's a long line of suppliers for suppliers. It's really amazing, because one industry coming to the United States of America inspires and necessitates more industries coming back to the United States of America. So somebody like NVIDIA is going to cause a massive ripple effect, a domino effect, unlike we've seen before. And it's going to be amazing for the U.S.
But I got to tell you that it's astonishing to see how quickly people are moving because of this. I saw a flowchart, Larry, that just astonished me about semiconductor onshoring, where basically NVIDIA and Foxconn and about 50 partners that are, that make the parts that go into the parts that go into the parts, that are all thinking about how are they going to get that stuff to happen here in the U.S. And it's literally astonishing what people are doing with AI and everything else to design the onshoring. And I think it's going to happen way faster than people expect, and it's something that you can see when you see huge announcements like we've seen. It's in the trillions and trillions of dollars of onshoring that's going to happen really over the next year or two. Now think about what that means in terms of just GDP growth, all that capital spending that's happening because of the onshoring of these tariffs. And so I think President Trump is right that we can bring this stuff onshore, and he's even more right today than he was in 2017, because with computers and AI, it's so much easier to move stuff from place to place, and with 3D printing and robotics and so on, it's astonishing what's happening.
All right, it's astonishing what's happening. It's so easy, and it's going to be so lucrative for the United States of America, because we've got all these people coming into the country. And Scott Bessent, who's the Treasury Secretary, was asked a very interesting question about the Japanese Prime Minister, who said he's going to take his time negotiating the right deal. And you don't want to be dragging your feet in this kind of situation. When you're dealing with President Donald Trump, when you're dealing with the tariff policy, when you're dealing with reciprocal tariffs, you don't want to be the last guy at the table. You want to be first. So Scott Bessent had a warning to all these countries. Look, don't make a good deal for yourself and for us, but don't dilly-dally.
The Japanese Prime Minister recently said he's not going to rush to get a compromise and a negotiation. How quickly do you think you can see these deals come to fruition?
Well, again, I think there will be advantage to our allies, especially, and a first mover advantage. Usually the first person who makes the deal gets the best deal. So who do
you think will be first?
It's their choice.
Is there a handful of countries that you expect to have a deal before the 90 days is up?
Oh, I think there could be numerous countries. And look, it may not be the actual trade document, but we will have an agreement in principle and be able to move forward from there.
So are we talking about a dozen or 70 plus?
Look, I think it's going to depend, but we're going to move with all deliberate speed. And again, it's going to be a process. It's going to be USTR, who just has mountains of data that they've been collecting over the years. Because in a funny way, the tariffs are the easiest part. So a country with high tariffs, you can just say, okay, this, get rid of it. It's the non-tariff trade barriers that are more insidious, more difficult to spot, and it's probably going to take a little longer to exercise those demons.
Yeah, let's exercise the demons of the non-tariff trade barriers, and that's something that President Donald Trump will be going after next. Before we wrap it up for today, I did want to share with you one thing that happened yesterday. The national championship Ohio State Buckeyes were at the White House with their number one fan, J.D. Vance, who broke their trophy. We're not really sure what happened, but whenever you win a national championship or whenever you win some kind of massive award or sports accomplishment, you're invited to the White House, and the Ohio State Buckeyes were there. J.D. Vance picked up the statue or the trophy, and somehow it just broke in two. I don't know what he did to it. I don't know. Maybe he's stronger than he thought, but he picked up the trophy in front of all the ball players, and the top part removed itself, just popped right off from the bottom part, and JD Vance tried to stabilize the base, but it fell to the ground, and it made for a very interesting ceremony. In JD Vance fashion, he took to Twitter, or he took to X rather, and wrote, "I didn't want anyone after Ohio State to get the trophy, so I decided to break it." That's one way to do it. That's one way to do it. For sure. Listen, we have so much more that we've got to talk about later today. There's a lot of news that comes up all the time. And as a result, we have a second daily podcast. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, which is climbing up the podcast charts so quickly. We appreciate everybody joining us. It happens today at 1 p.m. We live stream on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, on various different platforms. And if you'd like to just download the podcast and listen to it at your leisure, you can do that as well. Search Mark Kaye Saves the Republic in your favorite podcast platform. Download, listen, and enjoy.